what it seems like, not what you said, but what the media is trying to do is paint him as a predator, a sexual predator, and
True.
he had a consensual relationship.
And I was like, what happened to Quinn Snyder, who was a free agent head coach? What happened to Mark D'Antoni, who was also a free agent head coach? What about Mark Jackson, who's been blacklisted for the past like 6-7 years and hasn't had a coaching job for forever?
All right, so moving on from Takeoff and the struggles of the hip hop community to Ime Udoka's back in the headlines.
Back in the headlines again,
When
man.
when does this die, Sticks? When does when is he no longer a mainstay in the headlines? So Ime Udoka
Facts.
is back in the headlines after the Nets fired second-year head coach Steve Nash. The Nets have been since that firing, they have been vetting other coaches, but it's looking like their candidate of choice is going to be Ime Udoka after looking into the situation that happened with the Boston Celtics and asking to speak with him. It was granted by the Celtics, and it looks like they are in the final stages of finalizing a deal with Ime to be their next head coach. Sticks, what's your thoughts about the potential hiring for the Brooklyn Nets?
So our boy Ime back in the news again, back on the podcast one more time, man. But of course, as most of y'all might know, is that Brooklyn Nets just parted ways with Steve Nash.
Yep.
So that's how Ime Udoka even got into the conversation to get the head coach job in the first place. But he is currently, as D'Lo mentioned, under a 1-year suspension with the Celtics for the improper workplace relationship. But they need to vet that out first. They need to get that situation done first. I feel like, and just like we said in the past 3-4 episodes that we done did on eBay, but it's only been 2. But yeah, we felt like in the past that he was going to get another opportunity to coach, and that he honestly deserved an opportunity to coach. You know what I'm saying? But he does deserve to be punished for the things that he did. So my thoughts on it is, how is it possible for the Nets to go ahead and give Buddy the job with no reprimand and not even have to fulfill the 1-year suspension that the Celtics gave him? And I know it's different per organization from what the organizational suspensions can be and what the NBA suspensions can be. But at the same time, shouldn't the Nets have the same regard for the suspension as the Celtics do with what happened, right? No, you don't think so? What you think?
I mean, I don't. So if we're talking strictly organization, I don't think they should have the same regard for that suspension as the Boston Celtics, because as you mentioned, it is a strictly an organizational suspension that they have, which is why they went through the process of vetting out what actually went on. And I feel like the Boston Celtics, as we mentioned, did a terrible job with handling this situation.
Horrible job.
And so to give an example, that would be like you have an ordeal with the company that you're with. They don't fire you, but they don't give you the hours that you need to make a living, which this is not the case with Ime. He just got half his salary cut, but still enough to live on. But you get cut from your job, not cut, you get reprimanded from your job. They don't give you the hours that you need, but they're not firing you. So you put in applications for other jobs. You tell them the situation is going on right now, and they say, okay, that's fine, we'll still hire you. They do their due diligence and seeing what really happened, and then ultimately they decide to hire you. Same
situation
here. Yeah.
Same situation. I agree with that. And the Celtics have already granted him permission, you know what I'm saying, to talk to whoever he wanted to talk to if he wanted to leave the organization. They said they weren't going to stop him from getting jobs elsewhere. So
exactly,
it's in that instance, then yes, the Nets have all right to speak to Udoka. And the Celtics said they will let him go freely. They will let him go without any compensation, which is even crazy. They don't want nothing in return for the man. With nothing in return. So it's like, and well, I guess in that instance, then I can agree with the Nets. Like, shoot, I mean, you just lost Steve Nash, who me personally, I didn't think he was going to be a good coach anyway. I thought there
Hmm.
were so many better options out there than a rookie head coach in Steve Nash. Me
Well, I
personally.
mean, Ime was a rookie head coach too now, so
He was, but he had more experience than Steve Nash had being with Philly, being with San
right,
Antonio. So he was already under a couple of really good coaches prior to getting his first head coaching job. Steve Nash had never coached before.
right. So then
You know
that's
what I'm saying?
that was what I was getting at is, I mean,
Yeah.
Ime was also a rookie head coach, but of a he had more of a background in coaching in the NBA, where Steve Nash was he just a helper with the Warriors when KD was there? What was he?
He was
A
I think
consultant?
he was a consultant for the Warriors when KD was there.
Yeah.
He also coached KD in 2020 when it was in the Olympics because he was an assistant head coach for the Olympic team in
Okay.
2020. So he has a relationship with KD. He has a relationship with Patty Mills because he was a second assistant to with the Spurs whenever Patty Mills was there.
We're talking
Also,
about Steve Nash.
no, oh shit, I thought you were talking about Udoka.
Yeah,
My
no,
fault.
no, we're
Yeah,
talking about Steve Nash.
Steve
Steve
Nash.
Nash
Yeah,
was only a training consultant for the
he was a
Warriors.
consultant for the
Yeah,
Warriors. He was
okay.
only a consultant
Yeah,
for the Warriors. He didn't have any head coaching experience at all.
yeah,
It's not even first assistant, second assistant,
yeah,
position coach, none of that. He was just a
yeah.
consultant. You know what
So
I'm
in
saying?
that case, he's a true rookie,
He
whereas
was a
Ime
true,
Udoka
true
is just
rookie.
coming through the ranks, and he's a rookie head coach, but not a rookie coach in the NBA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because he has a lot of experience with different, like as far as the Nets are concerned, he has experience in relationships with KD, Patty Mills. Probably the most important person he has a relationship with is Ben Simmons.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? For him to be able to possibly get Ben Simmons in line and have him a little bit more aggressive and actually playing basketball the way he knows he can play basketball, that'd be
Hmm.
huge for the Nets. But it's they still have to kind of get things together and kind of figure out things with the Boston Celtics and have a couple of more talks with Udoka to see where this is going. But they do have Jacques Vaughn right now as the interim head coach until Udoka can start the job. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, I mean, Udoka is an interesting kind of situation, bro, because all the backlash that he got from in Boston for the whole situation with the young lady to now kind of being, well, in my opinion, kind of like back on top again and being
Hmm.
able to kind of get past that situation and be able to have this opportunity to coach the Nets, who, with all the talent they have on that team, can be a contender. You know what I'm saying? To be back in that situation. So I feel like it's going to be a good situation for Ime when, because I feel like it's a win at this point, when he gets that job in Brooklyn. So,
It's
and
definitely.
mhm.
Go ahead. My fault.
No, my
I thought
fault.
you were done.
I was done. Go ahead.
No, I definitely feel like it is going to be a good situation. It's going to be a good situation for Ime if he can control or help control the off the court distractions from coming
Mm-hmm.
on the court. But the only challenge to that is he's coming to the team with off the court challenges himself. So for the Brooklyn Nets to hope that he can rein in all of those off the court distractions and hold
Mm-hmm.
everybody accountable. I don't see how they expect that to happen, but Ime has showed that he can be a great coach. In the
Mm-hmm.
short amount of time that he's been a head coach, he's taken, as we all know, he's taken the Boston Celtics to the NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm.
So he showed that he can be a good coach, and then you just add the fact that he has a superstar in Kevin Durant. If Kyrie can pull in his off the court struggles and just play basketball, then you have Kyrie and Ben Simmons. That's a big three. As Shaq said, you have
Mm-hmm.
2.5 stars on your team in the East. Should be, a recipe for a championship contender. Um, I think we all knew, as you mentioned earlier, I think we all knew he was going to get his opportunity to be a head coach again.
100%.
We didn't think it was going to be this soon, especially with the
I didn't.
suspension
Yeah, facts.
that he had from the Celtics. But Stephen A. Smith called this very scenario, which is he called this very scenario to a T. He said, "What's going to happen is Steve Nash is going to get fired, or
Mm-hmm.
the Nets are going to let him go, and they're going to go get Ime Udoka, and damn near 2 months to the day, it's exactly what happened. So
Mm-hmm.
the question that keeps coming up,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, it's like, why are we back on this? But the question that keeps coming up is, how do we think the women? What's the message that this sends to the women in the Nets organization?
For sure. And I mean, I think with the hiring, I think what's going to happen is the Nets are going to have to vet this very, very, very thoroughly
Hmm.
and give Ime some clear cut rules and concise instructions with how he moves about the organization.
Hmm.
Because they are because of course a couple of months back they were talking about how that the whole power dynamic and him being him messing with a subordinate and this that and the third. They have to give him some clear cut instructions on how to move. So it definitely sends a message to the women of, this is just my opinion, it sends a message to the women of, okay, the organization is hiring this man that clearly had a situation with women in the past within the organization. Now we have to be on our toes and on our P's and Q's whenever this, if and when this man comes to this organization. So I think the women, I think the Nets have to make sure that the women understand that they are protected and they are, and everything will be good when this man comes. They have to send that message to the women in the organization. What you think?
So I agree with you, um, in parts. I feel like that you're right. The Nets have to let the women know that they are protected in the situation,
Mm-hmm.
when Ime comes. I feel like they have to give clear cut guidelines for what for how Ime maneuvers around the organization. Where I don't agree with you, and you didn't necessarily say this, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Right, right, right.
what it seems like, not what you said, but what the media is trying to do is paint him as a predator, a sexual predator, and
True.
that's not the case. He had a
Right, right,
consensual,
right, right, right.
well, what is perceived to be, what is known, the information that has been released. He had a consensual
Consensual
relationship
relationship.
with a woman inside of the Boston Celtics organization.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that there are other consensual relationships, um, that were deemed wrong, that women, I mean, women deal with this all over, and I'm not saying that they are used to it and they should deal with it. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely don't speak on the woman's behalf,
Right.
but this is standard procedure, it seems like, in these types of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And women, again, I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think that the women of the Nets organization are too concerned with
I
this
don't think
hire.
so either. I
Yeah.
don't think so either. And like you said, if it's like the word consensual means both parties agreed. Period.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So with it being a consensual relationship, if I mean, like you said, I don't think the women are much concerned because if one of them chooses to be consensual with the nigga, they can choose to be. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it's two adults consenting to actions, whatever,
Exactly.
whatever it is to this relationship. So it's I don't think they're too worried either. But if they do have some kind of worry with Ime coming, all they got to do is voice their opinion, go talk to
Mhm.
the owner, go talk to Josiah, and let him know like, hey, this is how I feel, and y'all
Mhm.
can talk about it from there. And Josiah just needs to make sure that the women understand that they are protected, and this is how we're going to handle this situation.
And I'll
But
also add
yeah,
that Ime, especially being the fact that he was publicly embarrassed,
mm-hmm,
with the whole situation, he's probably gonna make sure he's on his P's, and I would hope he's gonna make sure he's on his P's and Q's anyway. So it's
mm-hmm,
probably something that is a moot point right now.
for sure.
But yeah, I agree with that first statement that you said. The Nets have to make sure that the women of the organization know that they're protected and that they can
Mm-hmm.
come to them, with anything, and it's not just going to be swept under the rug. Although I don't really feel like any of them are too concerned right now.
I don't
But
either,
again,
and I
I don't want to speak for
yeah,
them, and I don't want to put words in their mouth.
for sure. And I agree with you too because you said that Ime is going to be on his P's and Q's because he's walking on thin ice. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
With this new organization, because it had already been said that he did it with Boston. He had relationships in other organizations that he's been with too. So he has to, like you said, keep it straight and narrow and make sure he makes the most of this opportunity, because if anything happens this time, it could be his last opportunity. So he's got to
Mhm.
be on his P's and Q's, and he's got to stay. He got to stand strong and just, resist temptation, my boy. Like, come on, man. You ain't got to do all that. But how do you feel he can help the Brooklyn Nets?
I mean, like we said, he's proven in a short period of time that he's a good coach. Obviously, he has the tools necessary to be a good
Hmm.
coach, as he's had multiple assistant jobs
Hmm.
across the league. Um, he's getting this chance to be a head coach after so quickly after the situation that he just went through in Boston.
Hmm.
And in reality, and in all fairness, basketball or coaching in general is all about relationships.
Hmm.
And you brought up the great points that he has relationships with KD, he has relationships with Patty Mills, he has relationships with Ben Simmons. That's a great starting point. I don't think I think the Nets thought initially when pulling in Steve Nash and his relationship with KD was good enough to win over the team. And I think they found out that it needed a little bit more than that. And so if you're able to have those good relationships with the stars of the team, with the leaders of the team,
Hmm.
then that just it spreads throughout the whole team, the rest of the team, as far as, okay, this is a person that I can trust with my career. This is a person that I can listen to and know that he's put me in the right positions to be successful. I think the initial challenge, though, is going to get them to look pat. And I don't know, I might just be speaking out of turn, but the initial challenge is going to be them looking past what he has gone through and then saying that he can hold them accountable initially. He's going to have to do some drastic measures to make them feel comfortable with holding them accountable, or feeling like he has the right to hold them accountable is a better phrase that I should say.
For sure. And I think, of course, when he was with Boston, he had Jason Tatum and he had Jalen Brown, who he pushed to have the best season of their careers while he was there.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And he turned that, as we talked about before, he turned that organization around mid-season. They had a push to get to the playoffs, and they had a strong push to get to the finals. I
Right.
think he has a good way of holding the stars accountable. I think he has a good way of being brutally honest. If they will fall shy of the standards that they have set for themselves, or the expectation they set for themselves, I don't think he'll be afraid to call out mistakes, because he
Hmm.
is a strong-willed coach. My thing is that Will, as they've already been called deep. Of course, Kevin Durant's been called a diva, and
Hmm.
of course, Kyrie is the free thinker he is, the stubborn guy that
Hmm.
he is, that we talked about here a little while ago. I just hope that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving will be able to take that kind of criticism and not let their star power and the thoughts of themselves get ahead of them and ahead of what Ime
Hmm.
is trying to do. But he's known to be a defensive coach. And as of right now, I think the Nets are ranked 29th in the league out of 30 teams as far as their defensive ranking.
Hmm.
Um, so as long if he can turn that around in itself, two things that if he can turn around for me, if he can turn around the defense with the Nets and Ben Simmons, if
Hmm.
he can turn Ben Simmons around, I think he would be in prime position to take these guys to the promised land, because he has a really good team that he's coming into when he comes. So hopefully he'll be able to turn it around. But um, it's it's a tricky situation because a lot of people don't think he deserves the spot. Boston is in their feelings about it because Marcus Smart came out and said, Ime's name got slandered and slaughtered, and and it was, as much as he got slandered and slaughtered, he'll probably never. They say we're saying he probably never coach again, but a couple of months later, he's probably going to be the coach for one of the biggest rivals that we have. He said
And
it's tough and it makes no sense.
yeah, I mean, and now Marcus Smart has every right to feel that way,
Hmm.
but he should look at the organization that he's playing for and how they handled that situation,
They handled
because
it terribly,
they handled it terrible. I mean,
terribly.
they could have did one or two things. They could have just fired Ime, which they
Mhm.
essentially did, and then gave the little information that they did and let us try to figure it out. Or they could have just been more clear with the information that they had about the
Mhm.
situation and given clarification for why he was only suspended for that year and not
Mhm.
let go. Because like we have said from day one of covering this whole ordeal with Ime, is it's just not it's got to be something else for why they decided to suspend him rather than fire him, and then the length of the suspension that he's had. It has to be
Mhm.
something else, and I still feel like it's something else, even though we've kind of come to the conclusion of this episode with Ime Udoka and the consensual relationship.
Yeah, I think there's something that they're still hiding. I mean, they gave the information that everybody wanted and kind of left it at that.
Hmm.
Um, but the fact that he is leaving Boston and then taking a job right down the street, like essentially, and trying to get those guys who were in the same division as the Boston Celtics and trying
Hmm.
to coach those guys to where he got the Celtics to last year to the championship, it just feels kind of weird to me. But there was one thing, and I was reading the New York Post, and Ian O'Connor, who's a writer, who's a sports writer for them, he said that the Nets are trying to clean up their own mess by borrowing something from somebody else's mess, which is never a good
Yeah.
idea. So
Yep.
that statement was kind of funny, but it's one of those things where I kind of felt at one point before we had this conversation, which I'm glad we had these conversations every Sunday, is that I felt like there were so many there were a couple of different names that rang out to me that I thought about when I was researching this. And I was like, what happened to Quinn Snyder, who was a free agent head coach? What happened to Mark D'Antoni, who is also a free
Hmm.
agent head coach? What about Mark Jackson, who's been blacklisted for the past like 6-7 years and hasn't had a coaching job for forever? So like they're
Right.
making this, they're making what I feel like is a bold move to go get Udoka, which is like since we having this conversation, is not that bold, but
Hmm.
he wasn't the only candidate for this job. And there's so many more names out there who, to me, would be just as good as Ime to have this position. So it's like,
You
it's
know,
crazy.
I'll give a example for this. So you know how when you were younger,
Mm-hmm.
I'll speak for you. I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for you. When I
Okay.
was younger, when I was younger, since we're getting around Christmas, there's always one or two toys that I absolutely had to have for Christmas, and if I didn't get it, I wouldn't say I threw a fit, but I wasn't happy on Christmas Day.
Facts.
It just feels like the Nets always wanted Ime Udoka after he proved himself to be a valuable coach last
Okay.
year. That's what this move feels like because you're right. Quinn Snyder, who was not a pushover coach with the Utah Jazz the last couple years, was
Mm-hmm.
good. Mark D'Antonio, while his system is different,
Mm-hmm.
he does win a lot of games during the regular season, but during the playoffs, it doesn't fare that well. So, I
Very
mean,
true.
I could see why they may have looked over him. And then he was already in that market with the New York Knicks, so they
True.
probably
You're
didn't
right.
want to go down that route.
You're right.
Mark Jackson is a one that is a head scratcher as to why he has not gotten a head coaching job because it's not like he did a bad job with the Golden State Warriors. He basically helped build the team to what it is now. And then when Steve Nash took over the keys, they started winning championships. So I don't know what
Not Steve.
the
Steve Kerr.
issue is.
Steve Kerr.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Steve Kerr. I said
Yeah. Yeah.
Steve
Yeah.
Nash, didn't I?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all good.
Sorry, Steve Kerr. When Steve Kerr took over, they wanted to start to win the championships. But I
Hmm.
don't know why Mark Jackson has been
It's so
blacklisted
weird to
from the
me.
NBA.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those things where like you said, Josai had a relationship with, because he used to be part owner of the Spurs whenever Ime Udoka was there, and then he bought in, and now he owns the Brooklyn Nets. So he has a relationship with Ime in the past, and like you said, I do believe that since he proved himself in the NBA as a winning coach and a coach who can take the reins and win the locker room and make a team better by just his presence and his thought process as a coach, I feel like they wanted him for a while.
Hmm.
And that's the main reason why he's there. And they're going to vet as much as they can to make sure that he's good to go and that everybody in the organization understands that Ime is going to be here and this is the steps we're going to take to keep him in line and keep him straight. So, my final thoughts are: I think it's a good move for the Nets, because they're going from a true rookie head coach to
Hmm.
a second year proven head coach that has a good philosophy about his coaching, can win the locker room, can possibly rein in the stars that he has, the big three that he has, and change the dynamic of not necessarily the organization, but the team that's around him
Mhm.
to be able to start winning. Because right now they're 2-6, which is kind of crazy with the team that they have. So if
Right.
he can just come in and just start winning, because winning cures all. Winning
Right.
cures all. As long as you winning, ain't nobody even gonna talk about what happened in Boston no more. It's gonna
Exactly.
be Ime has came into Brooklyn and he has changed the dynamic of this team. That's all they're gonna
Yep.
talk about. The more he
Yep.
wins, so I think it's a good move for Brooklyn, and I hope that Ime is able to do his thing with this situation. What you think? What's your final thought? What's your wisdom on it?
Yeah. My final thoughts is I want to say I'm glad he got another opportunity, but I know that's probably not going to be the right thing to say. Um, I hope he does well. So I'll get off of that, but I hope he does well in the situation, and
Mm-hmm.
that the Brooklyn Nets can turn their season around. Even though the season just started, they're not in any trouble by any stretch. You still have a long season to go. So I hope he does well. I hope the Brooklyn Nets can turn it around. But with all the turmoil that's going, I kind of went a different route than you do. I think if it doesn't work out this year, if he can't turn it around, the Brooklyn Nets just need to blow up the whole situation that they're in right now, and start over from scratch, because it just doesn't seem like a happy place to be right now.
Agreed.
Kyrie and KD haven't been happy there for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Kyrie's missed half the games, half the games that he was supposed to play while there. KD
Mm-hmm.
signed a six. How long was that contract? A lengthy contract,
I
and
think it
then
was a 6 year
requested
contract, and they
six year
requested to be out
contract,
of there.
and then requested to be out of there.
Well, no,
Uh,
he signed an extension and then requested to
yeah,
leave.
there
Yeah,
you go. He signed an extension, then requested to leave out of there. You just fired the head coach, who also did not seem happy to be there. So I mean, it's just too many off the court issues, that's bleeding onto the court. And again, I hope that it does work out for Ime Udoka and the Brooklyn Nets. But if it doesn't, just blow it up, start all
facts,
over.
man. It's
Go
funny you
go the
said it
way of
about
the
Steve.
Oklahoma Thunder, Oklahoma
Nah,
City Thunder.
it's funny you said or the Utah Jazz, but
Oh yeah, get
but
all the
it's
picks.
funny. It's funny you said that because it was a funny TikTok that came out with Steve Nash said he leaving the organization and not having to deal with Kyrie no more, and he was doing the gritty in his house.
Oh
It was
Lord.
funny. And Steve Nash, that joke was hilarious. But nah, it was hopefully everything goes right for those boys, man, and hopefully he make it turn it around for them kids, man. Like I told you earlier, man, she got this baby in the crib. They're doing a birth control project at school. This little baby, mechanical baby, driving her crazy. So if I ain't no granddaddy yet, but
Yeah,
I got a little one back there, and my daughter is taking care of it, and she is going crazy. Everything's
great birth control though.
bro, great, great birth
Based off of what
control,
you told me, it's great birth control. 6 o'clock in the
great birth
morning,
control.
3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
Oof.